Welcome to General Snobbery. Today we discuss the foibles of Jurassic World, a nearly incomprehensibly bad film. Brought to you by Hoffman Hams.
There's a feeling my life's been shaken out of control. It's arising from the depths of meaning I'll never know. There's a feeling that shines in the front of my mind. I'm gonna speak it out at the fireside, and in the morning we'll all be snobbing the whole way home.
Okay, well, welcome to another episode of General Snobbery, where the topic of the day is the 2015 movie Jurassic World.
Jurassic World, directed by one Colin Trevorrow or something. No one really knows much about him except that he's going to be directing the third Star Wars in the Disney Star Wars reboot.
So basically, it seems that he's sort of a Hollywood action-packed golden child. That'd be my diagnosis.
He's bald, and according to the mini documentary that comes with Jurassic World, he is a huge fan of Jurassic Park and worked pretty one-on-one with Steven Spielberg throughout this process.
Yeah, and he got to know sort of the process by which the first Jurassic Park was made with the animatronics and whatnot.
Yes.
Though they make, at best, a slight tiny cameo in Jurassic World.
So in Jurassic World, I think of animatronics when I think of the dead, like brontosauri, like laid, scattered about the field after, Chris Pratt's like, it's killing them for sport, when he realizes that the Indominus Rex is just murdering dinosaurs now.
Yeah, the Indominus Rex, which is easily a sociopath of a dinosaur, genetically created by the Asian guy from Jurassic Park.
Right. In order to meet the demand for more thrills.
Yeah, what a concept.
Yeah. So Jurassic World, we are going to, in typical general snobbery style, we're going to deconstruct it and hopefully find a lot of joy. And that's pretty much it. Maybe we'll talk about Jurassic Park, too.
Yeah, so at some point that'll come in, but
of course, we have to quickly establish, one thing that we forgot to establish in the first episode is that this is a snob. We are snobbing. We are not reviewing Jurassic World.
That's true, yeah. We're not going to give you sort of our critique and tell you its merits and its flaws. We're just going to basically tell you its flaws.
Right.
Anyway, so let's jump right into this and let's get a little synopsis of what exactly this movie is about. So, Sean, how about we start with you? You give us, your brief little plot rundown.
Okay. Jurassic World, in my mind, is about two annoying kids who earn no sympathy. It is about basically them getting stranded and lost in a really seemingly planned out type of manner in a theme park that should have precautions for the types of situations that they end up getting in. It is about how Chris Pratt is being marketed as a big Hollywood star, and it has something to do with the fact that the American population is no longer thrilled, and in order to be thrilled, we, for some reason, need, a metafictional send-up of Jurassic Park to deconstruct the problem of being thrilled while still trying to be Jurassic Park at the same time in order to resuscitate the lost magic of those 90s blockbusters that Steven Spielberg brought about. That's kind of what it's about in my mind. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, that's good. That pretty much sums it up. And now that, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I don't think there's any adequate way to actually explain what this movie's about, because it's one dumb vignette after another. I think as I watched this movie, I remember thinking, wow, that scene was very dumb. I'm excited for the next one to be less dumb. And then constantly I was surprised as each one outdid the previous one.
Is there any scene... Oh, sorry, you were about to continue.
No, go ahead. That's probably the gist of my synopsis.
I was going to ask you if there's any scene that stands out kind of above the rest that really shines as the official dumbest scene of Jurassic World.
Oh,
that's
man.
even possible to quantify.
Yeah, that would be very hard. Well, one that I was just rewatching some scenes, and one that I found particularly dumb was, so there's this bad guy. I don't know his name in the movie. He's the epitome of evil. Gomer Pyle from Full Metal Jacket.
Also known as the Bug from Men in Black.
Yeah. Sugar water. So he is, I guess, leading this military force. I mean, if I were to explain this to someone who'd never heard the movie, they would say, you're not explaining a real movie. You're making this up. You're on drugs or something like that. But he is supposed to help train velociraptors to become United States military weapons, which, if this were a good movie, I'd say, wow, that's a metaphor for drone warfare or something like that. But in reality, there was not enough kind of political thought to go into this movie to make such a connection.
And interestingly enough, he does address the drone warfare at some very subtle part where he's arguing with someone. Yeah, and he basically says that drones aren't good enough. We need raptors. The drones aren't accurate enough or something, and they can't go out and combat or something. So therefore, we really need these raptors.
Yeah, these raptors, they don't destroy whole schools. They just run through the school and kill the bad guys.
Right. They listen to Chris Pratt, who is pretty much on our side.
Yeah, Chris Pratt, absolutely, with his little like dog clicker that they never explain. We're just supposed to know that, like, ooh, that thing's important.
Right. I was amazed by that too. So in terms of plot, Chris Pratt plays a guy named Owen, and he is an ex-Navy SEAL, as evidenced by the scene when Bryce Dallas Howard asked him to like smell the tracks of the lost children, and he's like, "I was in the Navy, not the Navajo." So he was actually a Navy SEAL. He was not, in fact, a Navajo Indian, in case anyone was,
that
worried
was
about
going
that.
into the movie. That was my burning question. I was really hoping to find out.
Is Chris Pratt really Native American?
Yeah. I have a theory, just a fan theory, that he's a Navajo.
So he is training velociraptors, apparently for a cause that he doesn't even support, which is led by Gomer Pyle, who, as Matt has mentioned, is the epitome of bad, and his name in the film is Hoskins.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a good name.
It is a good name. Bob Hoskins was a great actor.
Yes. He was in Hook, am I not mistaken?
Yeah. He was Smee, yeah.
Okay. You know who's also in Hook is Glenn Close.
Yeah. That's right. Hashtag Glenn Close fact.
Just tune into our first episode if you'd like more elaboration upon that.
Yes, please do. But anyway, so Hoskins, sorry, just back to my real quick dumbest scene. When the velociraptors toward the end of the movie are chasing the Indominus Rex, again, if I were to describe this to someone, they would just say, "What, you're just making up words." But the velociraptors are chasing the Indominus Rex, and there's sort of the geeky millennial guy who wears the Jurassic Park shirt. He's in the
throwback guy.
The throwback guy, yeah. He's not important to the movie. He's simply nostalgia for millennial generation people.
Right.
And he's the only not the only comic relief, but he's comic relief, whatever.
Yeah,
and,
pretty much the only comic relief.
Yeah. A quip here or there by Bryce Dallas Howard or whatnot, but yeah, anyway, so just to prove how bad of an asshole, we'll maybe bleep that out, Hoskins is, to prove how much of a jerk he is, while they're watching the velociraptors chase the Indominus Rex, he steals this guy's soda, the throwback guy, and starts drinking it. Just to prove how much of a jerk he is, which I can only imagine that was like a last-minute ad-lib call by Teveraro, the director. I know that's not his name. Trevorio. I know that was a last-minute call where it's like, "Hey, Gomer Pyle, how about you drink his soda just so the fans know that you're a bad guy," even though it was clear from the second you walked on screen that you were the bad guy.
Yeah, now you're like descending into a new level of assholery by picking on the throwback guy who is clearly only in the movie for us to like. And he has like those little plastic dinosaurs set up on his like computer.
Yeah, he's such a little geek who watched the first Jurassic Park movie and was so excited to get a job there, and you just steal his stupid soda.
His soda, jerk. Which has like Jurassic World logo on it. And
yeah.
He's like smiling as he does it. Like, it's very clear that Hoskins, played by Private Pile or the Bug, or that guy from like CSI LA or something. He's definitely in one of the CSIs.
Yeah, he is.
It's very clear that he is a complete sociopath and a complete sadist, because every time something bad happens, the camera, Trevorio's camera, will slowly like zoom in on his face, and he'll just like crack this really sly smile, like, yes. It's all going to plan.
Yeah, my evil plan is finally coming true.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and but I just wanted to say one more thing about Hoskins. Something that this movie does have for us is, since it's predictable beyond belief, you know that the very first second you see him, I think my first thought when I saw him was, okay, this guy's gonna die.
Right.
And he does end up dying. The raptors turn on him, right? His baby. Because he tries to be the alpha too soon.
Right.
What a lesson for everyone.
Doesn't earn their trust from birth like Chris Pratt, who is a Navy SEAL. We're really all over the place with this, which is a lot of fun. And I know at one point, Matt, you mentioned that when Chris Pratt is training these velociraptors, he uses this strange clicking thing. I actually was very observant as to like how Chris Pratt is effectively training one of the most notorious villains of cinema history from Jurassic Park, when they're probably more terrifying than the T-Rex because they're incredibly smart, and they even outsmart that British guy, who's like,
because they remember.
Clever girl. And then they just destroy him. But Chris Pratt apparently has more knowledge than that guy, who is amazing. And he's able to train and render these raptors submissive by, like you say, clicking, by holding his hand out, and by not blinking. Basically just staring them in the eye, holding his hand and saying, hey, whoa, stand down,
I see you over there. Yeah, he trains them by giving them commands that a human being who speaks English gives to another human being who also speaks English. These animals don't speak English. They speak their little, like, barking sound.
Exactly. Yeah, and for some reason they listen to him. Mm-hmm. And it's just...
They kind of want to eat him, but they also listen to him.
Yeah, right. He crouches low. He puts, like, one hand behind his back. He's almost in, like, three-point stance, as if he's an offensive lineman, like, ready to, like, take them on. But they respect him for, apparently, reasons that we're just supposed to accept at the get-go.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see the relationship between Chris Pratt, known as Owen, and these velociraptors, where he's sort of he kind of dominates them, he trains them, then eventually they're totally on his side, and he's riding a motorcycle with them. Then they turn on him in typical bad movie fashion, not enough drama, so they have to create it with double crosses and stuff like that.
Right.
And then they're on his side again, and it's like... They stare at him. There are scenes when the velociraptors are staring at him in the eyes, and we're supposed to think like, oh my God, a real connection. But I like to think that in reality, they're just discerning. Should I eat this asshole?
And then that one probably would have eaten him when they have like a probably 10-second stare down, but then someone just like snipes it with a rocket launcher from the distance and kills it. So it can't quite kill him. And then in the end... So, yeah, they do that double cross thing, and it's at that point that Chris Pratt finally realizes that the Indominus Rex is part raptor, part T-Rex, so it's like a hybrid of the two villains of Jurassic Park, and because it can apparently communicate with the raptors.
That's right.
And then they're immediately
friends. It does its little barking thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and
so
then,
they join... Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just saying, and then at the end, they just like turn on the Indominus Rex again. They're just like, yeah, I do like Chris Pratt after all. He doesn't bully us like this big guy.
Yeah, this big guy bullies us. At least Chris Pratt has a clicker.
Yeah. Right.
Wow. God, talking about this plot twist, if you can call it that, in this movie, literally just made me tired. It is so idiotic that my brain just kind of stopped working. And we haven't even talked about Bryce Dallas Howard luring out the T-Rex.
Oh,
you know, as
gosh,
an
I don't
homage
know.
to Dr. Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum.
But one final irony while we're just kind of finishing this thread of the Raptors and the Indominus Rex is that in the end, like, they're about to get destroyed, these people, and you hear this raptor call in the distance, like, "Brr! Brr!" Like that weird weird raptor noise, and then it like runs in to save the day as the Indominus is like about to kill the T-Rex. And so the raptor saves the day, so in the end, Hoskins was right all along. We need these raptors. So.
Yeah, you're right.
Saves the day.
Yeah, turns out Hoskins, as much of a jerk and sociopath as he was correct.
He was right.
I think not to sort of go off on some crazy tangent, but for me, this movie is kind of a metaphor for everything that's happening in Hollywood. And this sounds like way too preachy, but God. Talking about these plot twists literally drained my brain too much. I don't even think I can go there, but I'll give a quick 30-second version. The movie is all about how people aren't satisfied with what used to make people excited. So, for example, something like the original Jurassic Park that had animatronics, and how people nowadays want more. And so they create this new dinosaur, the Indominus Rex, which for me is sort of a metaphor for CGI, which this movie is about 95% CGI. I think even scenes of people's faces were probably CGI. And it's just basically, like, at the end, the horribly CGI'd T-Rex wins and gives an homage to the first Jurassic Park with its little growl. And ultimately we're supposed to say something like, "See, old-fashioned is better," when in reality, the whole movie was just this whole stupid montage of just dumb CGI and throwback jokes. And, you know, maybe it'd be fun to take a couple of minutes to talk about ways Jurassic Park 1 was referenced in this movie.
Yeah. The first one that comes to my mind is when the two kids, well, first of all, the fact that there's two kids who...
You're right.
in a really bad situation... the two kids end up like stumbling upon the old like visitors lobby when one gets into Jurassic Park, like, you know, where Richard Attenborough leads them in the original movie, and there's a big T-Rex skeleton and the big sign that comes down at the end, like, "When dinosaurs ruled the earth." And they're able to, or like the older brother picks up a bone from that constructed skeleton and the actual banner itself and then lights it on fire as a torch, like, "Hey, the guiding light of Jurassic Park from 93 will lead us onward through this confusion." And then they stumble upon like the Jeeps, and all of a sudden they insert this backstory that this kid is basically a professional mechanic.
Oh, of course.
They're like, "Hey, remember that time we had to fix Grandpa's Jeep or something?" And then he just like,
oh my God,
fixes it and they drive off in it. So
there were so many attempts in this movie to make the audience sympathize with the kids, but it was impossible.
Yeah.
They were just too bland.
Right.
And even though everyone knew they weren't going to die, everyone hoped they would, right?
I don't want to put words into your mind, listeners, but I assume you did as well. Everyone also probably hoped that the British woman would die, and she did, but I don't think anyone hoped that she would die that gruesome of a death.
Wow, that was a bizarre thing that happened.
Yeah, that's the only unpredictable part of the movie, is just, I think I clocked it, and it was about 47 seconds of that movie was devoted just to the brutal and gruesome death at the hands of, I think, 3 different dinosaurs of that British woman.
Yeah, and she did nothing wrong. So she was the assistant, if you remember, and it was her job basically to watch after the 2 kids for a little bit, and she was fine. There was nothing annoying about her. She sort of looked like Keira Knightley, but God knows Keira Knightley wouldn't take that kind of role. And
these days she might. Post Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. So basically, when the pterodactyls attack, they pick her up and throw her around in the air like a lacrosse ball for a little bit, drop her in the big water cage with the mosasaur.
Yes, the
who cares what
yeah.
Mosasaurus. Yeah. Why did I even think the name of that dinosaur was relevant?
Oh, it's relevant, Matt.
She's shy. Remember that mosasaur is kind of shy, according to the lady. As it eats a great white shark.
Yeah. Which, to tie it back to your idea of, audiences in contemporary America need bigger thrills, that is apparently like a throwback to Jaws, the 1975 thrilling blockbuster where the great white shark is this horrible nemesis and everyone's thrilled by it. But in contemporary society, it has to just be bait for a gigantic aquatic dinosaur. And it's also an allegory for like SeaWorld. So
you're right.
Like
drones,
several things at once.
SeaWorld. God.
And I do have to pull a fast snob on you, Matt, and correct you.
Please.
That those apparently those flying dinosaurs are not pterodactyls, as
Okay.
I discovered in my Wikipedia research. They are two different types of dinosaurs. One of them is called a pteranodon, and the other's like begins with a D or something. And so that I think in Jurassic Park 3 there's pterodactyls, and they're like one of the big enemies in that. So they have to make them distinct, I guess. And I don't know, apparently there's not much evidence that pteranodons were even carnivores. Like, they ate a lot of insects and stuff, but apparently in Jurassic World...
Teversauros world.
World of Trevelyan, they are basically want to just destroy every human that they see, especially this British woman.
Yeah. My guess would be that the filmmakers, they probably said they had a meeting. They probably had thousands of meetings when making this movie. And they probably said, listen, everyone knows what a pterodactyl is. We can't be cliche. Let's use some different flying dinosaurs. So they just looked up, they probably went to Google and said, what are some flying dinosaurs? And they just picked the first two.
Right, exactly. And I'm sure that when they had the idea of like an aquatic dinosaur, they were like, what is a big aquatic dinosaur? And then there's like a Wikipedia page about the Mosasaurus, and they're like, all right, perfect.
Yeah, nice. That could eat a shark.
Get that thing CGI'd right now.
And quick, kill that British woman, because she did nothing.
Right. She is very snobby, though. Like, she is probably...
She's kind of a jerk.
Yeah, of all the characters in that movie, she would belong most on this podcast, because...
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are many characters throughout that movie who seem quite annoyed pretty much all the time, but she is definitely the most annoyed. That
You're
she
right.
does not want to be watching these kids. She's on her phone, and there's even a brief blip where she's talking about her upcoming wedding and how she doesn't want her fiancé to have a bachelor party because his friends are animals. So she's about to be married, and she dies this brutal death.
Gosh, it just doesn't fit anything in the movie. There's no other brutal death.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
and
at least for
much.
a character,
Nothing like that.
She's clearly mean. She's not maybe a nice woman, but her point in the movie was also useless. So I don't know why. I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, wow, she's swimming, and the only way out of that pool is to quickly swim out, or, I mean, first she's dive bombed by these pterodons, and then she's eaten while being eaten by a dinosaur. It's weird.
Yeah, she's, I think, within, like, the beak of the pteranodon, which is basically like a pelican's mouth with sharp teeth. And then the Mosasaurus comes out of nowhere and eats them both.
Yeah, and it eats them just like it ate that shark by jumping out of the water.
And just like it eats the Indominus Rex at the end, when it apparently saves the day by leaping out of its cage, wrapping the Indominus Rex around the neck, and yanking it into the water.
Jeez, that thing... I mean, it's a big dinosaur. It ate a lot of food that day.
Yeah. No, Matt, I have to say, I'm having a strange reaction talking about this. I find myself getting more angry at this movie the more I realize how dumb it is. Yeah,
for me, it sort of reminds me of an onion, because there's just layer after layer, and it just... it gets, I mean, yeah.
I would have to say a rotten onion, because, like, the external layers may seem like, oh, okay, yeah, this doesn't smell too bad, but then the closer you get to the middle, it just stinks. And it just burns your eyes. Exactly.
Now, maybe I could lighten up the anger with a little anecdote about Jurassic Park 3, if you don't mind.
Please.
So Jurassic Park 3 is the movie I've seen the most in theaters.
3 times?
3 times.
Nice.
Have I told you this story before?
No, it was just a guess.
Okay, yeah, good guess. So there are probably a couple movies I've seen twice in the theaters, but Jurassic Park I saw 3 times in the theaters, and here's the real kicker. I saw it twice in one day. So I forget what happened. I think I had promised to see it with a friend, and then I'd also promised to see it with a cousin. and it just so happened that the only time they were available was the same day. So I think I saw like a matinee, and then I saw like an evening, like an evening showing of it. And probably of all the Jurassic Parks, that's probably the one you only need to see once at most. And yet I saw it twice in a day.
That's remarkable. Did you enjoy it?
I think so. It was neat with the pterodactyls. You learned more about the speaking, sort of the language of the. It was dumb. It was very dumb, but still somehow less dumb than Jurassic World, because Jurassic World probably took about 15 years of planning, and I think Jurassic Park 3 probably took about a year of planning and shooting, and probably cost about a fraction of the price.
Right. I think the biggest budgetary thing for Jurassic Park 3, other than maybe the CGI, was Sam Neill's stipend for appearing again as Dr. Grant.
I knew you were going to say that. You're right. That has to be it.
Right. That's probably the least blockbustery of the three.
Yeah, you're right. It's dark and boring.
Yeah, I don't think we can even assume that our listeners, if we have any, have even seen Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah,
we can definitely assume they've seen Jurassic Park, and if they're listening to this, probably Jurassic World, but I don't think we even need to mention Jurassic Park 2, except that Jeff Goldblum's in it, which is great.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park 3, though, is kind of like throwing William H. Macy, Sam Neill, and a bad guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Téa Leoni.
Yeah, Téa Leoni. Yeah. Into some island where apparently there's a lot of dinosaurs.
Yeah. That's it. That's the movie. Yeah. The people you think are going to die, die. The people you know are going to live. Happy ending. Right. Boy, I feel like my brain's on overload with all the directions we can go. Maybe we could quickly recount where we are in Jurassic World. So we've talked about Hoskins. He's a jerk. We've talked about the British woman who dies.
Yeah. So our plot is basically that Jurassic Park is open in the future because they responded to everything that went horribly wrong in Jurassic Park, and they made it an operational theme park, even though they never say exactly how long it's been open. But apparently it's successful. There's no problems. Mm-hmm. And we have two kids who earn no sympathy, whose apparently their parents are getting divorced, but
that doesn't garner any sympathy still.
Right.
I don't know how they failed to do that.
Yeah. It's like some really amateur screenwriter named Colin Trevorrow was sitting down, and he's like, okay, we need sympathy because for some reason in Jurassic Park, the audience cares for these characters. So people have sympathized with other people when they're going through divorce or when their family's going through divorce. So we have two kids and their parents are going through divorce. And then he checked sympathy off the list. Wrote the script.
Yeah. You're right. They just had a list of emotions. They were like sympathy, fear, happy, and then product placement. And those were the four things that they needed to accomplish in making this movie.
And it becomes so uneven when it gets into the whole meta commentary on audiences needing thrills these days, because it seems like they're actually trying to get sympathy in those moments. It's not a joke when this kid all of a sudden just starts crying. He's like, Mom and Dad are getting divorced.
Yeah, and his jerk older brother, we see a transformation in him. He goes from being all sorts of standoffish to actually caring.
Yeah,
over the course of an hour.
Right. He goes from being in a relationship to checking out every girl that they happen to see, and being really snobby and non-caring, and then all of a sudden going off road and being like, "This is awesome."
Yeah, I bet the screenwriters when they wrote about him thought something like, well, let's see, this movie's about nature and evolution and the process of nature. He's a young man. Let's bring in the puberty aspect. He's going through puberty. He likes girls. Write it.
Right. But in the end, his real nature is caring after his younger brother. Then they run from the Indominus Rex, which, for some reason I'm just not scared when the Indominus Rex is chasing these people. I don't know why. I still am kind of frightened in the original Jurassic Park. But in this one, it's just oh, okay, there's that CGI version of a T-Rex that they're going to get away from.
Yeah, it's so true.
And then they just jump off this waterfall and have this touching moment where they're we jumped. We jumped.
We did it.
Like, we jumped. We took the leap of faith. We're going to be okay. We're going to make it through Mom and Dad's divorce. We jumped.
We can accomplish anything. I would imagine that Indominus Rex would follow them down the waterfall and eat them immediately.
Especially when it zooms out, it looks like the height of the waterfall is about the same height as the Indominus Rex. So it could probably mostly step down.
Yeah, exactly. And this is like the most beastly of all the dinosaurs. Like, it kills Brontosauri for fun. I think it would take the time and effort to kill two little running, ape-looking creatures.
Right. And it apparently has an insatiable appetite because it is just constantly eating anything it can, including that really fat guy who's like eating a sandwich.
This is the worker who hides behind the... Oh my god, that scene made me laugh.
Could you set up the scene maybe for our listeners if they
course.
Exist?
So if you haven't seen the scene or you forget it, the Indominus Rex, they think is out of its cage, so they send some workers in its cage. Well, it turns out it's not out of its cage, it's camouflaged. And in the process of a couple of workers running out of the cage, it gets out. And one of the workers is an overweight man. And so the moment you see him on screen, you know he's going to die. And he gets out of the cage and he hides behind a car. And the Indominus Rex is creeping around the car sniffing. And then it just sort of lifts up the car, leaving this guy sitting there by himself. And he looks over to Chris Pratt and he gives the weirdest look. It's it's almost this look of semi-melancholy, well, I guess I deserved this.
Actually,
go
ahead.
And then the thing just eats him, just destroys him.
It chomps him from the waist up, which is clearly the most weight on his body. In my memory, he might as well be holding a sandwich when he's sitting there.
You're right. Why? When you said the guy eating the sandwich, I immediately knew who you were talking about.
Because earlier, when it first shows him, he is eating a sandwich, and then the next scene, after they realize that the Indominus Rex is gone, as he's trying to figure out what's going on, he's still eating chips.
Yeah, something about that. Just they made that character in such a way where you just knew he was going to die.
Right.
I don't know how. You just
right. Maybe because
yeah.
I was going to say maybe because he's the one that looks the most like Newman. And so part of our unconscious at that point, I don't think that the creators of the movie actually thought this deeply, by the way, but
I think you're right.
Part of our unconscious kind of wanted him to die just to relive the joy of Newman's death scene.
That's right. So for those of you who are listening, if you've seen Jurassic Park 1, you probably know what we're talking about. But in case you don't, Newman was the guy who stole the embryos from Jurassic Park. Named Newman because it was Newman from Seinfeld. His real name in the movie was Dennis Nedry.
Nedry, apparently. Apparently it's
Nedry.
Nedry. It sounds like Nedry, but it's Nedry.
Okay, Dennis Nedry. But everyone knows he's Newman. And Newman was also overweight and killed violently by a Dilophosaur.
Yeah, Dilophosaurus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is the bad guy in Jurassic Park. The only
he single-handedly ruins people's lives.
Right? Leads to several deaths and the shutting
including
down.
His own.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he accidentally goes off-road and his Jeep, where he's trying to rendezvous and get the embryos to Dotson, who is about to pay him $1 million for this science. He goes off the road and he's stranded in the Dilophosaurus pit, and he ends up...
How'd he get in there, by the way? I thought these things had fences.
Yeah,
He opens a gate for a shortcut? It doesn't matter.
He's going on this road and it's just pouring rain and he can barely see, and he looks down at some point. Yeah, his glasses are really foggy, and when he looks up, he's going off the road and he just screams, and then the car's stuck, so then he has to try to get the car out of the situation. And over the course of 4 minutes, he goes from being caught in a storm to being brutally murdered inside his vehicle by a Dilophosaurus.
Yeah, first by being shot with a paralyzing goo, and then presumably just ripped to shreds inside his own Jeep.
Right. After having slipped and fallen down a nearly vertical waterfall on rocks, and I have to mention, my brother, after he listened to our first episode, wanted me to mention just as he's slipping down, he looks really, really fat. It's by far the fattest that he looks in that whole thing. And
You're so right.
So funny. And then he falls and just gets back up without being injured. But his
he
glasses
falls a
are
good
gone.
10 feet. So he falls, and when he falls, it makes a cartoony slip sound, like whoop. Which I remember for years watching that and thinking, there's no way they actually put that in the movie, but they had to.
I must be hearing things.
Yeah, that's not. No one slips like that unless you're in Tom and Jerry or something.
Right. And actually, the sound very closely mirrors the sound Newman himself makes when Dotson in an early exposition scene meets him at this like restaurant in Costa Rica, and he shows him how this like shaving cream like contraption is going to somehow like house these embryos and keep them cold. And Newman is so excited that this is happening that he makes this noise that's like this weird high-pitched squeal.
Yeah,
I can't even mimic it.
Yeah, it's like a wheezing laugh. He's so excited by how this Barbasol shaving cream will keep embryos cold that he is so thrilled. He's like, I can't even do it.
Yeah, I can't if I try. Oh, there you go. That's pretty good.
But that's not even nearly as high.
I know. If
high.
if it's legal, I'm going to insert the actual sound because I recorded it on my phone.
It's called a compartmentalized.
And also because that sound sounds almost identical to a sound that raptors make. And I'm not sure if it's like intentional, but there's this wheezing like, God, I can't even do it. It's not even close. But
Yeah,
I think it's when they
like
put the cow down into the raptor pit and they sound like this weird wheezing noise.
Man, gosh, that sound, it almost reminds me of like a very high-pitched and sped-up sound of a pig squealing or something like that.
That's actually really accurate. Yeah, that's good.
No, I like to think that maybe one of the sound editors found this sound and was like, hey, I really like that sound. And he just used it for Newman's laugh, for Newman's slip, and for the raptors.
Or Newman just made that sound and they were so thrilled that that sound was made that they were like, hey, let's use this for the raptors too.
Yeah, that'd be a nice little sound.
And I watched that sound clip scene probably 8 times. And I'm still not sure whether it's Newman or like the pressure of that like that shaving cream thing unleashing. I really want to think it's Newman, so I'm going to decide that that's what it is. But there is a chance that it is that like the pressure being released.
You're so right. I've often always thought that as well too, because they kind of happen in unison.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Because that can is pressurized and special.
By Dotson.
We got Dotson here. And then, of course, I like the way they did this, So in Jurassic World, you had Hoskins who drank the fun guy's soda just to prove he's a sociopath. But in Jurassic Park, the original, to prove that Newman's a sociopath, he took the shaving cream, the menthol shaving cream, and put it on a slice of, like, cherry pie.
Right. And really, really enjoys it.
Yeah, he loves that part. And then sort of wipes his hand and makes Dotson pay for lunch.
Right. That was kind of a mean move.
Don't get cheap on me, Dotson.
That's what he says. And then he's like really rude to John Hammond, like in one of their few scenes of actually interacting, and basically insisting like, you don't pay me nearly enough for this. And like, pretty much that's setting up his motive for this whole thing. Like, he wants money. John Hammond hasn't given it to him. And so
that's the
mad.
one area. That's the one area where John Hammond did spare an expense, it appears.
Spare no expense. We spare no expense. Except for Newman.
Yeah. Spare no expense on anything except for Newman, Dennis Nedry's salary.
And maybe Mr. Arnold, but Samuel L. Jackson is clearly not as good as of a programmer as Dennis Nedry. Yeah. And he's more satisfying.
Yeah, you're right.
And the final image of Newman's death scene is that after he falls down that mountainside or whatever, that waterfall, that shaving cream comes out of his pocket and he's removed from it, and the final image is just mounds of mud falling on it and burying it. And I read a fun fact about Jurassic World that apparently Colin Trevorrow was going to have the kids stumble upon that
oh my God.
bottle of shaving cream and like pull it up, which, gosh, I wish that he did it, because that would be such a great scene to snob about, because even in that 4-second clip, it was completely covered, and apparently like 22 years have transpired since Dennis Nedry died, and there's just no way that could possibly be found. So maybe that's the logic of taking it out, but just the fact that it was considered is truly remarkable.
That is really remarkable that they would even consider that, because you're right, it was just gallons and gallons of cascading mud just like covering this thing.
Right.
But if they had done it, I wish that they had like the kids find it, and they like, when they find it, there's like a background sound of Newman screaming, almost like the memory of what this caused.
The collective memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of many strange Newman sounds when he's dying via Dilophosaurus. It's like, It's a really odd thing. Kind of unsettling, but kind of funny.
I think every Jurassic Park movie really shines with its, what the heck do you call them? Sort of the assistant characters, not the main.
Oh, yeah, side characters.
Characters.
I don't know.
They really, yeah.
Archetypes, tropes, whatever you want to call them. Like, they're definitely not developed characters.
No.
Stock characters.
Just because I was thinking of Jurassic World, and it made me think of the two Asians in Jurassic World, namely the genetical engineer who was in Jurassic Park 1 and was a good guy, but then sort of became a bad guy in Jurassic World. And then the Indian guy who I guess is the CEO of the park and just loves John Hammond's vision more than anything on Earth. He probably loves John Hammond's vision more than his kids.
And he loves dinosaurs and thinks they deserve all of our respect, even though he's like behind this like dinosaur zoo.
Yeah, you're right. This dinosaur zoo that is creating truly lethal dinosaurs and meddling with nature.
And I have to point out that there is a third Asian who is probably my favorite of the three, and he's the guy who suddenly pops in. He's the leader of like the ACU unit that goes out to assassinate, or not even assassinate, the Indominus Rex. They go out to tranquilize it because they don't want to waste all the money from it. Right. And he leads this group, and they all just get slaughtered. And he only has one line, but like clearly when it shows him, we as the audience are like, okay, that guy's the leader. And he is. Yes. And then they realize that the Indominus Rex has outwitted them, and he just screams, "It can camouflage!" and then dies.
And then the Rex just like eats him,
right?
Destroys him. And then I think there's a quick flash to cut to like his lifeline, like his heartbeat, and it just goes flatline 0. Like that guy's now dead.
Exactly. Then they have cameras on all of their helmets, and there's like a quick cut to one of those cameras, and it just shows 2 legs being dragged across the ground, and you just hear a guy screaming. And then a lifeline goes flat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Gosh, that's ridiculous.
Boy, oh boy. I think one of the questions, since we've devoted a little time to Jurassic Park now, is why is Jurassic Park so much better than Jurassic World?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, because Jurassic World's clearly recycling a lot of its archetypes and tropes as like attempting nostalgia. Like even when they, stumble into that old lobby area, it like that piano music comes in suddenly, like
yeah,
and like right when they go into the park, it's like the epic music.
Yeah, absolutely, and it sort of gets you pumped up a little bit.
Yeah, or it's at least supposed to. Except when that epic music comes in Jurassic Park, it's right when it finally shows the Brachiosaurus.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the first time it shows a dinosaur, and it's like, and we feel so good, and Grant is awed, and Ellie is awed, and even the lawyer is like, we're gonna make a fortune.
That guy's gonna die.
Except when that scene is mimicked in Jurassic World, it's the doors of the park opening, and it's just like a pyramid and a park that we've never seen and don't care about. It's like, where's the dinosaur?
Yes.
Who cares? Like, I've never seen this before. You can't match this nostalgic noise with like a new image. You have to like bring me back to that moment by showing the T-Rex or something, showing something epic, not just this like part.
Yeah, I thought the same scene, or the same thing. So the kids arrive in their hotel room, the young little squirrely kid opens the doors, and the camera just pans over the whole park, and it's playing this music, and it's supposed to be great, but it's so just unremarkable in every single way, and it's not exciting, and it just looks like a little camera drone flying over a suburban mall or something like that. And it's like, this isn't cool, like this isn't neat, there's nothing exciting about it.
Yeah, there's nothing nostalgic about it.
No, they tried really hard, but
right.
And I was wondering about that, and I was wondering if it's just does some of it have to do with the fact that before I even watched a scene in Jurassic World, I knew like exactly what was going to happen, but that's not the case with Jurassic Park. At least there's some mystery and some awe and some wonder that Steven Spielberg was able to create, but Jurassic World is just like, okay, dumb product placement, stupid joke, like weird character who's gonna die, weird character who we kind of like, weird character who's never explained, like the French African man. Where the hell did he come from?
You mean Chris Pratt's sidekick?
Yeah, Chris Pratt's sidekick.
Who like whispers to his favorite raptor, Blue. Says like prayers to her, which may as well be the same prayers that like the African guy from Gladiator says whenever he's praying.
That's right, and he buries the little figurines.
And it's one thing to point out about that guy before moving on, which is great, is his intro moment is right after Chris Pratt is like, they show Chris Pratt and he clearly is like controlling these raptors, and he's like, hey, and like holding his hand out and staring them down, and they're listening to him, and then he makes them run. And then that guy, that French African guy, comes out of nowhere, slaps Chris Pratt's hand, and says something like, "You finally got it." Or like, "You finally did it." Like, finally did what?
Yeah. They're like, hey, listen, we can't have this French African man come out of nowhere. We need to show that these two have some rapport. So,
right. And then there's some background. They've been working on this scene for a while. Of the raptors listening to everything he says.
Oh my gosh.
And then enter Hoskins and...
Yeah. Enter Hoskins, that jerk. And
then like the kid who just gets yanked in by a flailing pig. And
too bad that pig didn't have Newman's squeal.
Right? That might have been the closest throwback to Newman, is that pig running away from velociraptors. Oh man.
Yeah, he's pulled in. He's this 17-year-old scraggly little kid who's wearing a beanie. I mean, we're in the middle of the frickin' rainforest. Why are you wearing a winter hat, you idiot?
Yeah, the same aghast look on his face every time it shows him. Like, he's just horrified.
So stupid. And then that's when Chris Pratt shines.
Yeah, because Chris Pratt saves his butt and does that Indiana Jones roll to get under the, closing gate. And then what does he say to that kid? He's like, "You're the new guy, right? Ever wonder why we needed a new guy?" Like, implying that the last guy got eaten by raptors.
Yeah, which I really wonder if he did. And if so, they should have shown that.
They should have shown it and probably shut down that program.
Yeah, you're right. If the previous guy was eaten by raptors, maybe you shouldn't have a tiny little, catwalk over the raptor pit. Yeah,
with a basically waist-high fence.
Yeah, what was the point of trying to save, a 12-pound pig from 4 raptors? Just let the pig die.
Right. There's not much logic. And what's he going to do anyways? That kid looks really weak. So I think that if
he's going to, rope it around the body and pull it up?
He probably had about a half-second window after catching it before the raptors reached it and slaughtered it. More than likely pulled him in.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I
was
love
there
that
any
scene.
thought? It's a great scene.
Yeah, maybe my favorite scene of the movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's almost like the movie at its rawest. Because everything else is just so plastered together.
Yeah. And I have a jumping off point. We're kind of in the mind of comparing Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. And really, if you look at Jurassic World now, you can realize within 3 minutes that it's inferior in every way to Jurassic Park because of the opening scene. I think the opening scene of Jurassic Park is one of the scenes of that movie that I've seen least, because usually, it's on TNT and it's at least a half hour into the movie when I start watching. But It's maybe the best scene of the movie, where we basically have that British guy who yells, shoot her.
Shoot her.
Later, and, clever girl. I forget his name.
Yeah,
It's a good name, whatever it is, but he's very serious all the time, and he wears short shorts and high socks.
Oh yeah, really, really high shorts.
And so they're transporting raptors, and something goes wrong, and then this African American man who is also transporting raptors slips and is dragged toward this cargo box or whatever, cargo vault, and he's holding onto the side as apparently he's being dragged in by some unseen horror, and then his body rises about 10 feet in the air, and he's still gripping and screaming as the British man is holding onto his hand or something.
Yeah, in some weird way.
Clinging to his breast, and then this great zoom in just on his mouth twice as he yells, "Shoot her!" But no one shoots, and then you see the hand in slow motion rip out of his grip, and then we fade into Dr. Grant's paleontology site. And then the opening scene of Jurassic World is an egg hatching. For about 3 minutes.
Wow.
It hatches, opens,
Gosh,
and then
right.
there's a mini eye of Sauron.
Yes, exactly. Little Sauron eye.
Yeah. And then it cuts to kids that we've never met and don't care about. Oh no, sorry, it cuts to a foot stomping that's supposed to look like a dinosaur foot, and then they zoom out and it's a bird, and we're just in a neighborhood oh man, they still have traces of life. I'm sorry, I just talked way too much. Maybe you could take it over for a bit, Matt.
No, you're so right though. Jurassic Park starts with some kind of it sort of establishes the conflict we're about to see. Okay, this is no joking matter. This is nature versus nature, and then Jurassic World is just I often like to think of the meetings that went into certain decisions, especially for movies. How should we begin it? And they probably thought of 1,000 things. They probably actually thought of just redoing scene for scene, because they had no better idea.
Right.
Let's have an egg hatch, right? That shows life will find a way. Remember, Ian Malcolm said that.
Yeah, we will show via a red Sauron eye that something bad is coming. It's we all know. That's why we're coming to this movie. Make it cool at least, the first one did.
Man, you could easily just have little captions under every scene of Jurassic World. Just first scene, bad thing will happen, bad thing will happen. And then they show the kids in their snowy Midwestern house, and it's feel bad for these children, parents getting divorced. And
right. And they show Bryce Dallas Howard, who we still haven't talked about, and probably it's about time to. And it's, to say this woman is stuck up and selfish, and she's going to have to become unselfish to become the hero or the heroine that she's always been meant to be. And for some reason, she's going to continue wearing high heels throughout the whole endeavor.
Yeah, slowly throughout the movie, she sheds layer after layer of clothing, which, if these filmmakers were clever, would have been a metaphor for her shedding her self-centeredness, but I don't think they thought that far. But, her jacket's gone, now her sweater's, around her waist, and now she's just down to her little gray tank top. She's just, had the movie gone on, another hour, she probably would have been naked. But,
Except for the heels.
Yeah, except for the heels. These stupid heels, which running through the mud and somehow sprinting at high speeds, getting chased by a T-Rex.
Yeah, and heels. Apparently fearless doing so.
Oh, yeah.
And just to make it clear to any of our listeners, if they exist, We are not sexist here at General Snobbery. We wish to point out that Jurassic World is very sexist. And
that is true.
It wants you to think, at least for a little bit, that it's not sexist. But there's a lot of contradictions implicit in it. Like, we have Bryce Dallas Howard, who has this, high-level position at Jurassic World. It's like, oh, okay, a female in, like, a real top position at this park. Cool. Mm-hmm. But she's immediately extremely unlikable. She's, like, got this really, like, blindingly white thing on this, I don't even know, this uniform. And she's completely neglectful of these kids who Jurassic World is apparently telling us to sympathize with. And she doesn't care, and basically it's kind of because of her that they end up, like, nearly dying at the helm of the most horrifying creature in existence. And then all of a sudden she just, like, is afraid and like, oh, we need to save them! And she's so scared, but at this point she's so selfish that I only think that it's because she doesn't want her sister to get mad at her. And, like, she has already demonstrated that she doesn't like these kids, and then she, takes off her uniform and, like, shows this cleavage, which is like a classic Michael Bay move in a movie. Like,
exactly.
Okay, this woman is now a heroine and she's hot and she's like has cleavage, and it's almost like the decision to keep the heels on, which I read was actually Bryce Dallas Howard's decision, or at least she didn't fight it. Was an attempt to say, like, actually, what is that an attempt to say? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I wonder if it would almost be an attempt to say something like, see, look what a woman can do.
Yeah,
something like that.
Look what a 1950s housewife can do. Like, who refuses to take off her heels even as she's being chased by a, like, I mean, come on. If she's running barefoot, then I'm like, all right, nice. She's, like, going real badass here. Like, now they're doing stuff. She's had a real change of character. But sprinting in heels is just not intelligent. So it's like, okay, they're pointing to, like, the fact that she doesn't have a realistic perception of the danger surrounding her. And then she also apparently, like, had a date with Chris Pratt. There's, like, a backstory that's really awkwardly inserted, and then, in the end, they're together.
Yeah, it's which is by the way, they stole that right from the movie Speed, if you remember the end of the movie Speed. And Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock kind of decide to start a relationship. Because,
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Like, because they went through this, like, really rough, high stress situation. But yeah, there's this whole stupid backstory with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard and how they went on a date, and they're always, like, snippy at each other, and he plays, like, the cool one, and she kind of tries to be, like, condescending or whatever, and finally they go on this date. But, like, something I was thinking about, sort of the role of Bryce Dallas Howard in this movie, is there's almost a certain amount of, like, Chris Pratt's kind of the savior, and finally at the end they kind of decide to, like, go on this date, which I feel like kind of diminishes whatever attempt they tried to make her seem like a strong, independent woman, because it's sort of like, okay, now she's found her man or something like that.
Yeah, who is, like, this awesome, like, badass man. Yeah, they, like, subsume her to, like, that trope of the woman in Hollywood,
Exactly.
So this movie is so full of contradictions, because it's like they're trying to convince you that they're commenting on these tropes, and yet they're not doing anything to, like, change them or better them. It's just like, hey, look, we're really aware of this, and we're doing it.
So let's put it in there.
Right. So let's do this and not, like, critique it. Let's just, like, show it. We have a great mutual friend, Matt and I, named Adam, and Adam once told me, when he told me how much he hated this movie, that this movie hates women.
That's right.
I mean, basically we have everything with Bryce Dallas Howard we just talked about, and then the brutal murder of the British woman, which is the most unwarranted death, maybe in cinema history.
Yeah. Out of nowhere.
And then, no other really big female characters.
No, there's the mom of the kids, played by Judy Greer, who I really appreciate. She's wonderful. But she's essentially a cameo. Mm-hmm. Other than that, and then there's the kind of the the female version of the nostalgic guy in the control booth. There's kind of a thing between them, but she has a boyfriend, and she's kind of nice, but really a negligible role in most ways.
Right. So I think we've really come to the central question of this film, and that's like, what exactly is Jurassic World trying to do?
That's a great question. I think because it's unfortunately a question that no one in the production of the movie ever even considered asking.
Right. Or if it came up, they came up with an answer within 10 seconds and didn't realize that there were about 20 conflicting answers that different people have come up with. And
so they just tried to sew them all together.
Yeah. This is bound to come together. Like Steven Spielberg's producing this. Colin Trevorrow is directing.
So I saw this might lend some answer to that question. I watched a 10-minute behind-the-scenes making of Jurassic World, where a lot of the things we've talked about are discussed in the movie, including Colin Trevorrow's favorite his use of animatronics, which again were not even in the movie except for when the brontosaurs are dead, but basically about the first 5 minutes of the 10-minute making of Little Short was devoted to how everyone involved in the making of Jurassic World loved the original Jurassic Park.
Right.
The actors being like, I remember watching this movie as a kid and I loved it and I wish I could be in that, and look at what this did, and Jurassic Park and John Hammond and Michael Crichton created these characters and blah, blah, blah. And so for about 5 minutes they talk about how great Jurassic Park was, and then the next 5 minutes are them talking about like, here's like a thing we tried to do, and about 2 minutes of it is devoted to the scene when the pterodons are attacking
Right.
And Colin Trevorrow is like on a PA and he's like, all right, everyone, run!
These are really dinosaurs.
Exactly. Did you watch the same one?
I did, yeah. It was great.
And so nothing in the movie like even made me think for a second that anyone involved in the movie had even the slightest notion that they were making something good. They were just like, listen, the original was great, and we're going to make this thing now.
We're going to have some throwbacks to the original, and really, 'cause another thing they kept insisting throughout that documentary is we want to reclaim the magic of that 93 movie, and like, we want to make adults feel like kids again. It's like, why? And what is the reason? Like, yeah, that's cool, but is that why our contemporary society spends like billions of dollars? All right, not billions, but hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
And, boy, it's
that doesn't make a good movie. Like, oh, that's magical.
It's like, Saving Private Ryan was great, so let's make a new war movie that tries to like really make people feel exactly like they felt during Saving Private Ryan again. And let's spend $200 million doing it. And then at no point in that documentary did they bring up the whole like allegorical layer of Jurassic World, that it's like allegorical for a Hollywood production. They're just all seemingly really stoked that they're doing this big Hollywood production because Chris Pratt's like, we kept looking at each other behind the set and being like, can you believe we're even doing this? Can you believe this? This is unreal. We're making a new Jurassic Park. And yet there's this layer that's like apparently either I don't even know if it's critiquing it other than just like pointing it out. It's like, why?
Yeah. It felt like the blind leading the blind. I mean, I don't feel like anyone had any concept of why they were making this movie, except for that some executives were like, listen, you make this, we're going to make millions.
Right. And
I think that's what they did, yeah. I mean, also, the
hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions. The amount of product placement in this movie blew me away.
Oh, my.
I
immediately think of Verizon Wireless and Coca-Cola.
I think there's a Jimmy Buffett restaurant, I think.
Yeah, apparently Jimmy Buffett is even in the movie. He has a cameo. There's like, when the pteranodons are going crazy, there's a quick clip of a guy grabbing 2 margaritas and running away. And I read that right. Actually is Jimmy Buffett.
Damn, I'll tell you what, this movie, I wouldn't have a bad thing to say about this movie if instead of the British woman getting killed by the pteranodons, the pteranodons had picked up Jimmy Buffett, and someone in the movie yelled, "Oh my God, the pteranodons have Jimmy Buffett!" and then they dropped him into the mosasaur pit, and then he was eaten. That I wouldn't have a bad thing to say about that movie. That scene would have redeemed everything about this movie.
I completely agree, and especially if like Jimmy Buffett's restaurant chain is called Cheeseburger in Paradise, and what if like a big banner that looks just like the banner from Jurassic Park that said Cheeseburger in Paradise like fell as the Mosasaurus was eating Jimmy Buffett. You're right. That would gain all my respect.
Absolutely. God,
they were so close.
They were so close. Why didn't you people think about any of this stuff?
So Jurassic World clearly has no idea what kind of movie it wants to be. It just made a lot of efforts to convince people, A, that it's smarter than you would think, even though it's not, and B, that it's great.
Yeah, this is a great movie.
Yeah,
everything.
When it came out, that's what everyone said. Like, oh my gosh, it's so good. It really lives up to the hype. And like you feel like you're watching the first movie again. It's like I really think that when you get $200 million to make a movie, you can convince the American population that that's true.
Yes, you're so right.
Just spend $10,000 convincing a big newspaper to write a review that says that.
You're right. Basically, we just boiled this down to it just being a propaganda machine.
Right. Yeah, it's like the money machine trying to convince us that it's critiquing itself, even though it's not. It's propelling itself.
Gosh, that's so true.
Yeah.
There was nothing magical about it. It didn't relive any of the original Jurassic Park stuff. Even the numerous dozens and dozens of attempts to throw back to the original just fell completely flat and were so stupid and out of place.
Forced and awkward.
Forced and awkward.
And
I think
Go ahead.
No, the only throwback that was kind of funny was the little DNA guy that we saw for half a second.
Yeah.
We should have seen him for more.
Definitely. And the hologram of the Dilophosaurus that the raptor like sees and is kind of like trying to battle with, but then it like wraps around. And
That's right.
I heard that hologram came straight from Newman's death scene. They actually took like, I don't know, the data or the CGI and like made it a hologram, so it's like the same motions.
Damn. Again, you might be thinking what I'm thinking, but I wish they had just had a hologram of the whole death scene.
Or just Newman on repeat making his weird noises.
There should have been like a virus in the computer system of Newman's face going, ah.
Right? Because those are the parts we really love. Or like a hologram of Samuel L. Jackson's really fake papier-mâché arm falling out of some crevice of like the control room and falling on Laura Dern, which is one of the best parts.
That is one of the best parts. We're going to eventually, of course, do a full just Jurassic Park episode because there's so much to do in there.
Oh, jeez.
But you're right. There should have been, like, in Jurassic World, there should have been a museum, and it was like the original Jurassic Park. Here are things that we found after we sort of reclaimed the island. And it would have been like, this was Mr. Arnold's arm that was, the rest of his body was eaten. You know? This was the khaki shorts we found from the British guy who was killed.
Right. Yeah. Oh, here's Newman's glasses.
Yes.
Oh boy, that arm deserves an episode on its own, because apparently, just real quickly in that scene, Laura Dern is like turning the power off. Right? Or is she turning it back on?
Yeah.
She's turning the power back on.
Something.
Yeah, because it's gone down because of Newman. And it goes back on. She's happy, and a velociraptor appears out of nowhere, like against a fence. She's screaming, running away, horrified. She backs up against a wall, and Samuel L. Jackson's arm falls and lands on her shoulder, and she's really comforted.
You're right. She like has the sigh of like the look that someone has after they complete a marathon. Like, thank God.
Right.
That velociraptor's 3 feet away from me, but at least your arm has just touched my shoulder.
Even though my back is against a wall. And I came here pretty much knowing that you're dead because you have stopped responding and you never came back. And you're nowhere like in this like pathway of where you should be. It's like,
right.
You've been hiding. Thank God.
Right. Man, I really wonder. I like to think I mean, how'd that arm get back behind those cables? Did the Velociraptor put it back there? Did it accidentally fling it back there?
Yeah, like two Velociraptors were fighting over this last bit of meat, and somehow they yanked it in such a way that it flew in this tiny crevice in the wall and was laid upright so that any subtle vibration against the wall would make it come down perfectly hand first and literally latch onto any shoulder because she comes out of the wall and it's still gripping her.
Oh my gosh. I remember seeing that scene for the first time and being kind of horrified as a kid, thinking like, oh my God, he is dead. The rest of his body is gone. Just his arm remains. But now, whenever I watch that scene, it's so delightfully fun.
Yeah. It's like, why is that arm like glowing? Why is it reflecting light?
He sweated a lot right before he died.
Why is it like a slightly lighter version of Samuel L. Jackson's skin complexion?
Yes. It's like when you see plastic fruit and you can tell from a distance that it's fake because it's shining. That's just what his dead arm was like.
Right. So this might be the key of why Jurassic Park is so much better than Jurassic World. Like, boy, I have so much fun talking about the two most fun scenes I think to talk about that we've talked about throughout this podcast have been Newman's death scene. Oh no, the three most. Newman's death scene, the first scene of Jurassic Park, and then Samuel L. Jackson's death scene.
You're right. All of which are death scenes, by the
way. Yeah, and like in Jurassic World, there's a fun death scene when the fat guy gets eaten. But like the other ones are just kind of awkward and difficult to watch.
A death scene should either make you sad or make you laugh.
And in the universe of Jurassic Park, it should definitely make you laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that they killed the lawyer first, because we want him to die.
Yeah, and it was a great death scene.
Yeah.
And even that death scene, it's like, wow, this is well done. And I wouldn't want to be him.
Yeah, he's sitting on a toilet, like praying or something, and just gets eaten.
Not even going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
His shorts are up.
His shorts are up, and he's been such a like bummer throughout the whole movie. Like, he's really lame. He's always like got the mentality that Grant and Malcolm don't have, and he even like bullies that kid to put away his night vision goggles because he says they're expensive.
That's right.
So mean.
Are they heavy? He's so mean.
Yeah. And then he just leans his head back and goes back to sleep. All right, so kids are better. Richard Attenborough is in it, who's way better. Mm-hmm. Better characters. Immediately when you see Grant, you like him, except immediately when you see Bryce Dallas Howard, you don't like her in Jurassic World.
Yeah, and with Chris Pratt, you don't like him the minute you see him. You think, I'm supposed to like this guy.
Right.
Because he has
cool.
a motorcycle. Yeah. And he's like, he makes fun little quips.
Yeah.
And he has he hits golf balls from his little shack. What the hell? It's really stupid.
And he's always scowling.
Yeah. He either has a scowl or some kind of like semi-attractive little smirk.
Right. Or some very, very studied pose as he turns around in an elevator and like puts one shoulder lower than another, basically modeling for himself. Maybe the movie.
You're right, Sean. You said it earlier in the podcast. You said this movie was essentially a way of saying Chris Pratt is now a Hollywood star, and that's really, I think, what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. We're like, we gave him a couple $1 million, so now when he's in a movie, it's a big deal.
Exactly.
Oh man, boy, I feel like there's very little left to say, except probably a whole lot left to say.
Yeah, every single scene could be its own episode because every scene is just multi-layered dumb.
Yeah. So any final comments on Jurassic World, Matt?
Yeah, I feel like I'm watching a cartoon, and I feel absolutely no connection with any character at all. I mean, often we'll refer to characters by their real actor's name when we talk about movies, but this one, I feel like it's all the more appropriate because I feel no connection to the characters. Right. And it has such a saccharine, stupid little sweet ending of like, a little relationship's going to start, and now the kids are happy, and maybe hundreds of people were just brutally eaten by animals.
And the T-Rex reigns supreme.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, nostalgia wins.
Nostalgia frickin' wins. So remarkably dumb.
Yeah, but really what wins is a good movie, and Jurassic Park is a good movie, and Jurassic World is not. Colin Trevorani Banabingbo needs to take a lesson from Steven Spielberg's pacing. That was the key thing, and my final point that struck me as the difference between these two. Jurassic Park is expertly paced. Exposition comes in when you need it to, when you're curious,
True.
when enough like death and destruction and craziness has happened, and we're ready for it, and all the characters are streamlined toward the same event. Whereas there's this like myriad of motives and events in Jurassic World of like Hoskins wanting these velociraptors for like the U.S. Army, and these kids wanting to like overcome their parents' divorce, and like all these different signals going so many different ways. Like the Indominus Rex gets out, and then it cuts to a scene where the little kid's just crying because his parents are getting divorced. Like when the T-Rex gets out in Jurassic Park, everything is about the fact that a T-Rex is loose and they're all about to die. And that's the key conflict. Like it takes an extra like 10 minutes for people to realize that the Indominus Rex is loose and this is a bad thing. And it just doesn't work for pacing.
No, you're right. That's a great way to put it. Jurassic World is so bad. There's no continuity between scenes. There are like 8 different plots happening. And it's just, they just really desperately... No, they didn't even hope that it would come together. They just knew that it would make money, and that's all that they cared about.
And there's no rain. That's key. The storm in Jurassic Park, and then there's a storm in both of the other Jurassic Parks, and it's key.
You're right.
It's key for the setting, and this one's just like a sunny day. And then like night. It's like, God, you gotta have a storm. That's the key for Jurassic Park nostalgia, is that like it's pouring outside.
Wow. It almost makes me think that the makers of Jurassic World watched Jurassic Park once. maybe in '93. Yeah.
And then Wikipedia dinosaurs that weren't used in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Now, I think maybe, Sean, if you wouldn't mind, maybe a fun way to end this one would be to just, if you would like to read a couple of the notes that you took when you watched Jurassic World. So,
oh, jeez, yeah.
The other day, Sean watched Jurassic World and took some notes, and there were some pretty fun ones.
Yeah, according to the documentary, the 10-minute documentary, it was the fully functional park was meant as wish fulfillment on the part of the filmmakers. As if when we were watching Jurassic Park, everyone in the country was like, man, I really wish that was a real place I could go to. I'm thinking, wow, good thing that happened so that no one ever had to go back. Let's see.
You're right. People died. I can't wait for them to build the real thing.
In the control room, we have a throwback guy who's clearly comic relief only, which is a big pet peeve. Why such unlikable heroes? There is an Indian guy in a helicopter who is compassionate for animals, and he is apparently the owner, and he loves John Hammond. He is the 8th richest man in the world.
They describe him almost not at all. We just know he's Indian and wears nice suits and can fly a helicopter. Yeah. And when he died by the helicopter crashing in the aviary, I was almost like, wait, did he die?
Yeah, right. Then he's just gone. And let's see. There is a brief conversation between the aunt and the mother, and the mother says, when you have kids, and the aunt says, yeah, if, and then the mother goes, when? To, I'm not sure, insert some kind of backstory, and oh boy, I think that's about that's about all I got.
So, Jurassic World, badly paced, and not well thought out, but bankrolled big time, and so therefore it was made, and I bet they'll make another one.
Yeah, and I hope they do, because boy, it's a fun movie, and I will quite likely watch it at any point I can from here on out.
Same.
But I will always choose to watch Jurassic Park over it.
Me too. I get excited when Jurassic Park's on TNT.
Yeah. I just get excited to snob when Jurassic World comes on.
Same.
All right. Well, listeners, if you exist, thank you for some reason coming this far with us. We love you dearly, and we hope that you enjoyed our snobs.
And thank you, and stay tuned for more.
There's a feeling my life's been shaken out of control. It's arising from the depths of meaning I'll never know. There's a feeling that shines in the front of my mind. I'm gonna speak it out at the fireside, and in the morning we'll all be snobbing the whole way home.